Go out now and buy a litre of petrol. Well, it's come down a bit, but it'll cost you £1.70. In America, the equivalent would be about 72p. Seems to me we're already paying far too much for energy in this country, and that's even before this crisis began. Well, joining me is Malcolm Grimston from Imperial College. Malcolm, I mentioned just what a litre of petrol would cost in America compared to here, but that goes right through gas and other commodities too, doesn't it?
Yes, it's slightly different. The issue on petrol is largely about taxation.
Yes.
We're much more heavily taxed. And in fact, until recently, there wasn't all that much difference between oil and gas raw prices in the States and Europe. What has happened over the course of the last 10 years is the fracking revolution in the States, and in the course of the last 6 months, of course, well, 9 months, this evolving energy crisis that we've seen before Ukraine, but certainly massively exacerbated by Ukraine. So now, actually, the oil price has only roughly doubled over the course of the last year. The gas price has gone up by about a factor of 10. And in the UK, we're particularly dependent on gas for our cooking, for our central heating, and for our electricity. And that puts us in a very difficult position.
Well, it does, and it puts our businesses in a very difficult position. I mean, we're paying more, our manufacturing plants are paying more for energy than Europe, way more than America's paying. How do we, I mean, obviously, I get the point about taxation, and that's a huge debate in the current fight in the Conservative Party as to what's going to happen. But how do we get cheaper energy overall? I mean, I know you're a great advocate for us going for nuclear power, and Sizewell C, it would appear, is happening. I know you're very pleased about that. But even nuclear energy isn't cheap, is it?
No, with nuclear it costs an awful lot to build it, but its running costs are low, and therefore it's very resistant to fuel price inflation. The uranium cost is only about 2% of the cost of nuclear generated electricity. It's about the gas price is about 70 or 80% of the cost of gas generated electricity. So when world power prices are going up, nuclear and, of course, renewables benefit because you don't see the same increases in the fuel element of their costs. And many countries, on the other hand, the French did not maintain their nuclear fleet properly. They kind of fell for the anti-nuclear argument that was more popular 10 years ago than it is now. So they're seeing their nuclear plants actually are largely offline for maintenance at the moment, which is contributing to their issues. You couldn't imagine a better, you couldn't put together all the elements of what we're going through now at the same time in such a way as to make it worse than reality.
And is that huge mismanagement, lack of strategic thinking from successive British governments has left us where we are?
Well, I would say successive governments in all countries, but certainly in the UK, we got very, very comfortable with North Sea gas. Fair enough, but that's only producing about a bit less than half of our gas use at the moment. We do get a lot from Norway, but that doesn't keep us from the price increases in Europe, because Norwegian gas can go elsewhere if prices are very high elsewhere. And we closed our storage facility at Rough in the North Sea.
It's almost unbelievable, isn't it?
Yes, and if we go back to just over 2 years, gas was 9p a therm on the market, the wholesale market. It's now £5.60 a therm. Now that 9p was artificially low because it was the time of the COVID recession when it was coming very close to not being able to give gas and oil away. But even so, it does show that the short period of time in which this changes means you can't just leave it to market forces. Government have to get involved.
Of course, and there's also a strategic national interest, is there not, in becoming energy independent?
Yes, insofar as that's possible. I mean, for many years, we should recognise some countries just have more energy available than we do.
But we do, don't we? We've got gas reserves untapped, we've got plenty of oil in the North Sea. If we needed it, there's lots of coal.
Yes, I mean, the gas reserves are running down, but not as quickly as we thought. And as I say, we do still get nearly half of our gas there. We could increase some of the...
And we could frack in the northwest of England.
We could, yes. I don't think a UK fracking revolution would be anything like the one in the States, but it might be able to contribute a bit towards what we're talking about. And, of course, at last now we're beginning to build nuclear, and we've got quite a good record on offshore wind and renewables as well, which I think have a part to play, not perhaps as big a part as some people would argue. But nonetheless, governments have taken energy for granted. It's not the sexiest thing most of the time when it comes to the health service or education.
They're not taking it for granted anymore. Malcolm Grimston, thank you as ever.